Where do we delete a place? Well, that happens in place item. In place item, we got this delete button. So here is where we have to work on to make sure something happens when we press that button. Now the question is, what should happen when we press it? And my idea is that we open a modal that asks the user whether he or she is sure if you want to proceed, so that you have a chance of canceling the deletion process. And only if you then click yes in that modal, we will later then, once we have a backend, send a request to the backend to delete this. So let's add such a modal. We already do have one modal here. That's the modal for the map. I will simply add a second modal because we will only render one of the two at a time. I will add a second modal next to it where I want to render this question whether you really want to delete this or not. So the content of this modal is a paragraph, let's say, where we say, do you want to proceed and delete this place? Please note that it can't be undone thereafter. So some warning like this. Now we need to configure that modal as well. I will add a header here where I say, are you sure? And a footer class of place-item __ modal-actions to nicely position my buttons in the footer. And speaking of that, I will add footer, and there I want to have some JSX which is rendered in the footer of the modal. And that should be two buttons, one to proceed and one to cancel. So therefore, here I will have two JSX elements next to each other. That is not possible. You need one root element in any place where you basically create a brand new JSX branch. And therefore here I will use React fragment, and in there then have my buttons. So the first button gets this inverse style here, and I will say cancel there. The second button gets the danger style, and there I will say delete. So this is then really when we will delete the item. So now we need to wire things up. We need a couple of functions to handle our different states, and of course, therefore, we also need some state itself. So let's add new state here, and that is basically the state that manages whether we show that confirm modal or not. So we could name this show confirm modal, and set show confirm modal is then our update function. And here with use state, we initialize this to false, because initially, of course, we don't show this modal. And then we need some functions. We need a show delete warning handler, which has the single responsibility of calling set show confirm modal and setting this to true. Then I want to have my cancel delete handler. This has the responsibility of setting show confirm modal to false. And of course, we'll have the confirm delete handler. That is where we then really will go ahead and delete the place. And again, that is something we can't do right now, but for now I'll just log deleting here so that we can still see that this was triggered. Now we need to wire up these different functions and also use our state. Let's start with the state. On the modal here, I will set the show prop, which controls whether the modal is shown or not, to show confirm modal, that state we just added. And on cancel will be set to the cancel delete handler, of course. The same for this cancel button. On click here, we'll simply trigger the cancel delete handler. On the other hand, on click on this button here, on the delete button in the modal, will trigger the confirm delete handler. And now we need to wire up that delete button at the very bottom. There, of course, upon a click, I want to show my confirm modal. No, that's the wrong thing. Show delete warning handler is the function name. That should be triggered here. With that, if we save this, if I click delete, we see that modal. If I click cancel, it gets closed. If I click here, it gets closed. If I click delete here, of course, nothing happens, but I see deleting. I want to close my modal in that case as well, though. So in here, in the confirm delete handler, we should also set show confirm modal to false to close the modal. So with that, if we now click delete and click delete here, we would really send a request to delete it, and we will do so later. And for the moment, we just close the modal and print this. So that's all the working. The real magic will happen later, but it's a good start. And with that, let's work on authenticate and make sure that there we also show a form. We can even switch between two modes, login and sign up mode, and we at least gather the user input for now.